Every sign and every house, a journey starts and we allow the universe so vast and true. AstroViktor, it's here for you.
Hi, my dear Astro family. Today we are going to be looking at Jupiter in Leo trine Saturn in the sign of Aries. Well, you might be wondering why on earth are we looking at it already when it's only going to be happening in 2026? And I want to tell you why. One of the reasons is because we still have got the sign-based square happening between them two. And it highly depends on how you navigate the square, whether the trine is going to bring you pretty much the rewards. So that's one of the reasons. The other reason is that if you use out of sign aspects, then Saturn and Jupiter, from about the 22nd of September onwards, they are going to be in orb and the trine configuration starts. By the way, we're going to have quite a few trine happening between them too. So the exact dates are on the 31st of August, 2026. And we're going to have one on 3rd of April, 2027. And we're going to have one on July 11th, 2027 as well. And then basically, we won't have any other trines until 2034, February 17th. Okay, I want to give you the sensitive degrees as well, because I would like you to look at whether you've got any planets in there. So the very first degree you might want to be considering is going to be 13 degree Leo or 13 degree Aries, but potentially this could be 13 degree of Libra and 13 degree of Aquarius as well. So that's one of the sensitive degree. If you have got any progressed solar arc or natal planet, then actually this is going to be super important for you. Okay, the next degree you might want to be focusing on, that's going to be the 3rd of April, 2027. It's going to be 17 degree Aries to 17 degree Leo. So again, you can be looking at 17 degree Libra or 17 degree of Aquarius. I think that 2027 is going to be super important, by the way. And the reason being is because when they are forming the trine, actually the Jupiter will be having almost an exact conjunction to the South Node and Mars as well. But I will be talking about that next year a lot more. And then the third sensitive degree that I would like to give you is, and that's going to be connected to the July 11th. That degree is happening on 27 degree of Aries to 27 degree of Leo. So again, sensitive degrees might be in Libra or Aquarius. Okay, now we've got the technical part of it. There is another piece that I would like to add to it. Also, if you have got any planets on 0 or 1 degree of Aquarius, then this trine is actually important for you because that's where the initiation point between them two started. So I'm talking about the Great Conjunction back in 2020, December 24th, 26, around that time. We had a conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn on 0 degree of Aquarius. But I'm going to be breaking that down for you as well. Okay, so this is the very important key dates and key degrees that you might want to be focusing on. Do let me know in the chat box below whether you have got any planets on those degrees. But let me give you an example so that we are all clear how to do this. Let's suppose I've got a sun almost on 17 degree of Aquarius. So therefore, the trine between Jupiter and Saturn is going to be very potent, okay? But it's only going to be bringing me reward if I worked well with the square element, okay? Then if I did so, then the reward is going to come to me. Now, if you would like to learn a little bit more about this, then I prepared a yearly forecast where I have spoken about the square element as well. Each video is approximately about 2.5 hours long for each rising sign, where I'll talk about what happens if you integrated the square element and what happens if you didn't. Okay, today I'm not going to be breaking this down in this video because I broke it down for all 12 signs in length. And this is going to be one of the major aspects Jupiter is making in 2026/2027. Now, I did make a video about Jupiter in Leo. You might want to be listening to that because obviously that's going to be super important that you work with Jupiter. Jupiter is the planet of blessing, so it wants to bring you blessings in the Leo part of your chart. So Jupiter in Leo, Jupiter is the planet of expansion and growth, opportunities, luck, faith, optimism. It magnifies anything it touches. Leo is a fixed fire sign ruled by the sun, and it represents creativity, self-expression, leadership, courage, the ego. It's about radiating one's light and being the center of attention. So Jupiter in Leo is all about growing our confidence, being super creative, expressing of who we are, and stepping into leadership roles. So it can really bring opportunities for public recognition, fun, romance, and a lot of optimism as well. The desire for recognition and to shine is surely amplified here. Yes, there are some negative manifestation of this as well. We can get super arrogant, big-headed, and so on. Kind of like the narcissistic position. Now, we've got Saturn in Aries, which I've also prepared a video about separately. So just go on my YouTube channel, search for Saturn in Aries, and then you're going to get a ton of material over that. But let's summarize. Saturn is the planet of structure, discipline, responsibility, challenges, and limitations. It represents karma and the reality principles. Now, it's in a cardinal fire signs ruled by the Mars called Aries, and that represents new beginnings. It's a pioneering sign, action orientated, but also represents individuality, to a certain extent, freedom. It's the I am principle. So Saturn in Aries suggests a time of building new structures around our identity, being who we are, having to accept who we are, but also taking responsibility for our action. Learning to be patient and disciplined, I think that's also a topic here. And maybe we do face challenges related to our personal boundaries, or we might be initiating too many things at once. So we're going to have to kind of slow down. And also, often we want to prove ourselves to others, like we are a strong leader and so forth. I think the best proof is if you believe it so. Now, they are forming a trine aspect on those days that I've given to you. And the trine is a 120-degree aspect. It is meant to be harmonious, a flowing aspect. It represents ease and talent and opportunities. So Jupiter in Leo trine Saturn in Aries, I think it could be highly beneficial and productive. We've got this expansive energy, the optimistic energy of Jupiter. And Saturn says, okay, let's go with it, but I want you to be super disciplined. I want you to be super structured. And I want you to be patient as well, because not everything is handed over on a silver plate. So we've got this creative confidence of Jupiter in Leo, and that finds a practical outlet to it. Or, I mean, both Aries and Leo are really about leadership and self-expression. So that is grounded here in a solid, responsible way. It's like taking responsible actions towards new initiatives. This is not just a period of like lucky break that usually Jupiter would be giving us, but of building something lasting and meaningful. out of those opportunities that are handed to you. Opportunities just walking towards us, but we're going to have to reach out to them. That's exactly what the fire signs are talking about. And also, in a way that we need to be courageous to be ourselves, to shine. Um, and I also believe that it indicates a time when you can successfully combine your ambitions with concrete results. But like I said, it's only going to be bringing you goodies if the square uh, element is integrated well. So we had three squares between Saturn and Jupiter. And you might want to be going back and kind of like revisit those squares. Two of them happened in the sign of Pisces to Gemini, and then the very latest one happened in the sign of Cancer to Aries. But yeah, they all went down, but don't think it for a second that it's kind of like just disappeared, okay? Because basically it's kind of like a phase. So the square period is lasting between 90 to 135 degree, okay? So up to 135 degree, basically Jupiter and Saturn are still in a square combination to each other. I know the trine is in between, but the trine is an opportunity, and it tells you that if you overcome certain type of challenges, that's exactly when the goodies are going to be happening in your life. So we had the square. I want to give you the dates as well, by the way, so that you can figure out when we had these squares. Because you might want to be revisiting what happened around those times, and do let me know in the chat box below. But we had one square on August 19th, 2024. We had one December 24th, 2024. And then we had one June 15th, 2025. So just recently. And the next square won't be happening until April 25th, 2035. So, what were we meant to learn during the square? Basically, what I'm implying is that the positive trine doesn't exist unless we have learned to integrate the square elements. So there were challenges involved with one or both of those planets when they were in square. A square is a tension, conflict, sometimes obstacles, and they are calling us to act on something. It forces us to confront and integrate opposing energies. So on one hand, whenever Jupiter is in a difficult aspect to something, we've got the urge to expand, but it's in a conflict with a with a need for a certain kind of security and emotional foundation in our lives. Or when Saturn is in a difficult aspect to something else, it's about the process of building the new structure, and we may meet resistance or conflict around it. So, of course, it highly depends on where it falls into your natal chart. So, I'm going to give you my own example. Jupiter is going through my fifth house, and Saturn is going through my second house. So, Jupiter wants me to spend money, and Jupiter wants me to have a lot of fun and go on holidays and connect with a lot of romantic endeavors. And Saturn says, no, we need to save money. We're gonna have to build up our finances potentially from scratch. We're gonna have to be able to somehow like reinvent how we are making our own money. So these two energies are in conflict. So we're going to have to be respecting both energies. We're going to have to do a lot of fun without compromising our finances. That's one of the lessons, for example, that I had to learn during the square phase, or I have been having to learn. The reason being is because, like I said, the square element lasts until the two planets are 135 degrees away from each other. So if the lesson were learned, then basically what happens is that you are going to start seeing the results. with the trine element. So let's say if I manage to like save money but having fun at the same time, then potentially I can make really good investments when Jupiter moves into the sixth house and then starts making a trine to Saturn. Or if I restructure the way I teach and so forth, then I'm going to have, let's say, plenty of students. I'm going to have plenty of work. Okay. So this is how it works. Now, the additional combination that you want to be taking into account is the great conjunction. A great conjunction is basically referring to the Jupiter and Saturn conjunction, which occurs approximately every 20 years. The most recent one was December 21st, 2020, on 0 degree of Aquarius. And basically, the reason why you need to be looking at that is because that's where we planted the seeds. So let me give you again a practical tip. We planted the seeds in the 12th house, which is, let's say, around spirituality. So let's suppose that in 2020, I started doing spiritual courses, or I started doing astrological readings to others. And with Saturn moving into the second house, might indicate that this is slowing down. And then Jupiter in the fifth house says, oh, yeah, let's spend money and let's go on holidays. Or in a way, let's increase my staging. So let's be on social media more and so on. So this is how you are going to be referring back to the initial seed where the where the seeds got planted. Okay. So during that conjunction, it was all about, because that's the greater cycle here, that's kind of like a collective cycle. But this is a moment where your ideas and structures, initiated by the great conjunction, now potentially with the square, we had to be having adjustments to it. And then if we made the adjustments, then basically the trine is going to bring us the reward for it. So therefore, with the Jupiter in Leo, we're gonna have to become more creative. So creative ways of presenting spirituality in my case. Or with that Saturn in Aries, which is very much about, the work of building a new personal identity and taking bold pioneering actions with this new reality. So maybe I need to be a lot more brave, for example, while I'm presenting my spiritual teachings. So I hope this makes sense. This example, of course, there could be thousands of other examples. You're gonna have to put it into your own natal chart. So let's look at what the opportunity is with this trine. So like I said, we've got the transit of Jupiter in Leo, trine Saturn in Aries. It is a rare opportunity. It happens every 9 years, most likely. And it's about building the confidence, being disciplined, allowing yourself to take creative risks, but building a solid long-term plan as well with a touch of responsibility. And then it would be a successful structured growth. Let's call the square as a prerequisite here. Okay, so basically what it says is that the opportunity is not given freely. It is the reward for having faced and resolved past challenges in your life. And the past challenges could also be connected to the Aquarius cusp of your chart. Okay? The struggle for integration and the balance of ambition and reality, or that expansion and limitations, because Jupiter and Saturn cannot be more different. One is about constriction, while the other one is about expansion. So if the lessons were learned through these tensions, then I think this current trine is giving you plenty of opportunities, plenty of success, not just potentially now, but maybe in the next 15 years. Let me give you some scenarios. I'm going to give you 5 positive and 5 negative scenarios on a personal level, and I'm going to try to give you some in the political world as well, or on a global level. So the positive scenarios, it's about creative leadership and public recognition. So let's suppose that you have presented a new business plan, which is a community-focused business plan, or it's a startup company, for example. You had this genius, innovative idea, but maybe previously that met certain type of resistance during the square phase. But now, because I didn't necessarily give up on it, now it is getting embraced by people. So, and then now the leadership you demonstrate is seen as both inspiring and reassuring as well. So therefore it leads to a successful launch. And maybe it's gonna go like it's gonna be widespread. It's gonna get the attention. So this would be the case, for example, if Jupiter is going through your first house and Saturn is going through your 10th house, for example. Also, it could really talk to you about like you have been working on a personal project. Maybe let's say you wanna write a novel, and maybe you have been doing it for years, and you were disciplined about it. You structured it. You've learned from your past struggles connected to writing this book, and now you are ready to complete it. You are ready to market this project. And maybe this project is somehow connected to social justice or community related stuff. And that's the Aquarius part. And then you get the financial stability out of it. Or maybe you have been leading a team successfully. Maybe you have been launched a new IT program, for example, or you did something within the community settings, or you did something on a social media platform, and then you made genuine connections during that period as well. And and during the square period, it might be, a scenario where you lost the trust or you started gaining the trust in your employees and so forth. And then now the Trines is allowing you to do this rapid but stable growth as well at the same time. Or I can imagine that you are about to be like founding a new community. Like you take that bold step of creating a community. Maybe it's about sustainability or like collective living or shared values and all those type of stuff. So we've got this vision for a group, and it starts attracting the right people into your life. And I also can imagine personal mastery. So after a period of intense struggle and self-doubt, that could be the square phase, you finally master what you actually need and how to take care of yourself. And that newfound confidence you gain during this learning period allows you to step into a leadership role, for example, in your professional field, or you are going to be ready to share your knowledge and inspire others with your own stories. Negatively speaking, it could indicate that your confidence is highly inflated. We might be arrogant. We might refuse to consider feedback. We take on too many projects. We believe that you can do no wrong or whatever you do is the greatest ever. And maybe you get temporary public recognition because it's a trine, so it's meant to be positive. But that lack of discipline and the structure eventually going to crumble. Like people are going to walk out of your life and you're going to have less clients. And then eventually it could lead even to a public failure, especially when the Jupiter and Saturn opposition will be happening. Or I can imagine that you have become so focused on the rules and limitations, and you kind of lost the spontaneity or the joy in life. And you are not inspired anymore. You are just creating these projects because I have to, but I'm not enjoying them anymore. Or I can imagine that uh, let's say you use the social and the humanitarian themes of that great conjunction in Aquarius for personal gains. Jupiter is in Leo now, which is, like I said, negative meaning of that is narcissism. And, let's say you take on a leadership role in a protest or social movement, but your primary motivation is to be famous rather than the genuine change that you would like to see. Or I can imagine that maybe you started this new social media channel or like a technological stuff, but you have failed to connect with the people. So therefore, you didn't collaborate, for example, and so on. And then it's just not taking off. The potential of the trine is not coming because the integration wasn't there potentially. So in politics or in on a global level, I can imagine that it's the birth of a visionary leader with a practical plan. So, like Jupiter in Leo is kind of like the head of a state and inspires the nation with a bold move or a vision for the future. And maybe it's centered on technological innovation. Or I can imagine international cooperations, like we've got two nations. Maybe previously they were at odds, and then they successfully negotiate a groundbreaking treaty, and that benefits both sides. And maybe the benefits are coming from technology or humanitarian matters. I can imagine that there is going to be a restructuring of governments, like a new political party emerges with a platform that is focusing on decentralizing power and empowering local communities. And maybe this is led by a very strong figure, that would be Jupiter in Leo, who inspires the loyal following, the successful legislations, the restructuring the old and the corrupt systems. And I can even imagine, who like a political leader who is coming with a lot of integrity and they have got more of an honest communication style. So there is a lot of social reform potentially could be happening with this. The negative side is that, we've got this political leader who uses their charisma and their powerful speaking skills, to kind of inspire the fanatics. And, they are building a system, but that's not fair. It's very authoritarian, for example. Or I can imagine that, we've got this political party and refuses to adapt to the changing world. And then they are just proud of the history and the strong principles, and they want to stick to the old ways, and there is no progress like moving forward. Or I can imagine like a bit of a gamble happening as well. An overconfident leader and then takes a massive political risk, and then that might lead to some um, failure, basically. Or we've got this like foreign policy that, like, as an initiative, it's kind of like putting a show on, and unfortunately, it might crumble. Or the initial excitement quickly fades away, and then the project fails. Or I can imagine a politician becoming a social media sensation. Not necessarily for the good stuff, though. So let's just be frank about that too. Yeah, so this is the a few scenario that I can imagine. So if you want to know a little bit more about this, you might want to take my yearly forecast for each rising sign because I talk about this a lot more. Yeah, well, I hope this helps. To be frank, I'm expecting some negatives just because we're gonna have the Jupiter and Pluto opposition happening also in Leo and Aquarius. And of course, what happens is that, the initial conjunction happened in the sign of Aquarius, so now Jupiter will be opposing that point. But I will be making a separate video about that also in the very same way. So you might want to subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any of these 2026 updates, because there will be a lot of videos coming your way. Have a lovely week, everyone, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Through every sign and every house, a journey starts and we allow the universe so vast and true. Astro Viktor, it's here for you.